Today's lesson is about how to write a letter. Now, before we begin this task, let's do a brief review about what a sentence is. A sentence is basically just a group of words together, and it starts with a capital letter and it ends with a full stop. Now, a paragraph is a group of sentences, and a paragraph begins with an indent, which is a space. Now, if I write a short paragraph, okay, so in this brief paragraph, I have stuck to one subject, which is myself. So a paragraph is a group of sentences about one topic. Okay, so now we remember what a sentence is and what a paragraph is. We can begin our task, which is to write a letter. Now, today's letter is concerning this topic. Let's make that a bit bigger. So the topic is, you have borrowed 10 library books and, due to an urgent matter, you will not be able to return them on time. Write a letter politely explaining your position and requesting that your fine be withheld. Okay, so now letters fall into some different categories. One category is a complaint, one category is a request, one category is a friendly letter, and one category is a business letter. There are other types too. Now, if we look at this letter and what we've been asked to do here, this letter is a basic request. So let's just go over the task together. So firstly, if we go over some of the vocabulary, now it says you have borrowed 10 library books and due to an urgent matter you will not be able to return them on time. Now, an urgent matter is something very important, perhaps an emergency or something that you absolutely have to do. So there's no way you can avoid it. Now, we're asked to write a letter politely explaining. Now, if we just go over the word politely, politely is basically being friendly. We don't want to be aggressive, we want to be nice in this letter. Now, this is different from if we were writing a complaint, where we might want to be a little bit more aggressive. But in this letter, we're going to try to be as polite as possible. Okay, now the rest of it says explaining your position and requesting that your fine be withheld. So if we just review this word here, fine. Now, a fine is if you do something that's not allowed in some cases, like if you drive too fast, then you have to pay some money as a punishment. And the same thing is true at a library. So if you keep your book for too long, past when it's due, then you will have to pay a fine, which is basically a punishment for keeping your book too long. Okay, so we're asking basically in this letter, now we're writing to the library and we're saying, sorry, I cannot return my library books because I have a very important problem. After we tell them this, we want to ask them, we want to say, is it possible, is it at all possible that you could not penalize me or fine me for not returning the books on time? Okay, so that's the task. That's the task that we're asked to do. So now I'll put this back up in a second. I'm just going to take that away. So now when it comes to writing a letter, the first thing we need to do is address the person that we're writing to. Now, in this case, we're writing to a library person that we don't know. And it could be a woman or it could be a man. So we would say, Dear Sir or Madam. And we say or with a slash. We wouldn't actually write Dear Sir or Madam. So Dear Sir, Madam, comma. Now that's the way that we begin a letter. We always write dear at the beginning, and if we don't know who it is, we write Sir or Madam. And now in a letter, we basically have 3 sections that we want to complete. And each section is 1 paragraph long. So the first section states the purpose of the letter. So basically this tells us, or tells the person reading it, why are we writing? Why are we writing to this person? The second section, this gives the details of the letter. Okay, so this outlines, so we're writing this because these are, this is what's happened, and we want to explain our situation. So this is basically an explanation. I should also point out that this first section, we want this to be roughly 1 to 2 sentences. 1 to 2 sentences. Now, if you're writing a letter for an IELTS exam, you want to keep this letter to about 150 words in total. So you want this part to be about 1 sentence long. This next part, perhaps 3 to 4 sentences. We'll say 3 to 4 sentences. Whoops, 3 to 4 sentences. And the last section will also be 3 to 4 sentences. Okay. Now the third paragraph, it talks about what we want to happen, or what we expect. Okay, and once again, this is 3 to 4 sentences long. Roughly 3 to 4. Okay, so if we go over these sections again together, now this first section here, so we're going to say why we're writing. Basically, I am writing you this letter because this is what's happened. Now in number 2, we're going to give the details. So perhaps we would say, okay, we have 10 library books that are overdue or going to be overdue very soon, and we're not going to be able to get these books to you on time. I'm not going to be able to get these books to you on time. And number 3 is what we want to happen. So basically, we want to request that the fine be withheld. And of course, like the question outlined for us, we want to do this in the most polite way that we can. Okay, we want to be friendly in this letter. Okay, so let's start. Now I'm going to take this away. And we're going to start the first paragraph together. So maybe what I'll do is I'll stick our question back up here. Okay, so just to review once more, we're writing, so you have borrowed 10 library books and due to an urgent matter you will not be able to return them on time. Write a letter politely explaining your position and requesting that your fine be withheld. Okay, so in our first paragraph, now we want to indent, so I'm going to leave a space here, and I'm going to write the purpose of the letter. So basically, I am writing in regards to my library books, which are due in the near future. Okay, so basically we've outlined then somewhat the subject of what we're going to talk about in this letter. I'm writing in regards to library books which are due in the near future. Okay, now if you remember from before, the second section wants to give the details. This is the section where we can state what the exact situation is. So we would write something in this case along the lines of unfortunately, I have a very urgent matter that I must attend to. You see, and I'm just going to make this part up. So we'll say that my cousin has fallen ill and is in the hospital. As you can understand, he is in need of support from my family. Okay, just moving this down a bit. So what we've done basically is here we've outlined in the first paragraph, we said why we're writing. Now in the second paragraph, we've outlined the basic problem. And the problem is that we will not be able to return the library books on time. Okay, so at this point we want to link the idea that we will not be able to return our books on time. And we want to be polite about this and to show that we feel bad that this is happening. So we might use a word like regretfully. I will not be able to return my books to you. And I'm going to say that our plane trip, it leaves today. I'm just making this up, but I'm going to say that we're leaving today, so it's not possible. So regretfully, I will not be able to return my books to you as my plane departs today. And I will not have enough time to make a trip to you. Okay, so that's the end of the second paragraph. Now the second paragraph has basically given the details of the problem. So it's basically said that the basic problem is that we will not be able to return our books, and we've answered why. Why? Because our cousin is not well. Okay, so in the third paragraph, now in this third paragraph we want to state what we want basically out of this letter. We're making a request, and that's the purpose of this exercise, and that's the basic request comes in the third paragraph. Okay, so the first thing we might want to say is that we understand that there is a fine, and then after that maybe we can talk about not having the fine imposed on us. So the first sentence would be something like, I understand that this situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. Okay, this sentence is saying that that we know that our books are late. We know we're going to receive a fine. And just a reminder, a fine is a punishment where we have to pay money. We have to pay money. So I understand this situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. Now, we basically, in this next part, we want to be friendly and persuade the reader of this letter to not give us a fine, basically, to say that our situation is very important and it's an emergency, and that if we don't receive a fine, then that's not necessarily the end of the world. So, I understand that this situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. However, I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine on the grounds that my circumstances are very I don't want to say critical, very important. So basically, I understand that the situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. However, I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine, and maybe waive, that might be a new word. Waive means, it doesn't mean cancel, but it means to not employ or not use. Okay? So I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine on the grounds that my circumstances are very important. And I'm just going to edit this. I don't like this word important. We're going to change that to are very urgent. Very urgent. Okay. So however, I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine on the grounds that my circumstances are very urgent. Now, if you're writing this letter for an IELTS exam, now you want to ensure that your letter is 150 words at a minimum. So I can tell by looking at this letter that we're probably up around 110, maybe 120. So we want to put a little extra information in here. And one way that we can do that is by even making up, some information. I mean, as long as it fits with what our topic is. So here, let's say that I trust that this will not that this will be possible as I have been a irregular borrower in the past, as I have always I trust that this will be possible as I have consistently, there we go, as I have consistently returned my books on time in the past. Sorry, I had a bit of writer's block there. Okay. Okay. Now, so once again, from the beginning of this last paragraph, I understand that this situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. However, I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine on the grounds that my circumstances are very urgent. I trust that this will be possible as I have consistently returned my books on time in the past. Now this last part here, or I have consistently returned my books on time in the past, in a way we're just trying to subtly point out that we've been pretty good borrowers in the past, and this is the first time that an issue like this has come up. Okay, now we want to probably sign off with been pretty good borrowers in the past, and this is the first time that an issue like this has come up. Okay, now we want to probably sign off with a little thank you. So, thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Okay? So we sign off with a thank you, and then we want to put a small closing. And in a letter, we typically use sincerely is nice, sincerely. Or we can also use regards. In my opinion, regards is a little bit cold, but it can be used. So I'm going to keep it at sincerely. Okay, and that's basically our letter from start to finish. We look at the format of the letter and just go over some things that you need to remember and to check off, especially if you're writing a letter for an IELTS exam. So the one thing is the address, which is at the beginning, and when you say you want to always start with dear, even if you're writing a friendly letter. And if you don't know who you're writing to, you include Sir or Madam. Now the punctuation is always a comma following dear whatever, dear Sir, Madam, comma. Okay, now to make sure that you must make sure that each of your paragraphs are indented. And just a reminder, that's a space at the beginning. And another important thing is to make sure that each paragraph follows the topic or does the job that it's supposed to. So just to reiterate, the first paragraph is basically just stating the purpose. Okay, and this is very short. It's maybe one sentence or two sentences. The second paragraph is outlining the details of your issue and why you're writing. Okay, and then finally your third sentence is outlining what you expect to get out of this letter, what you would like to happen. Okay, and then at the end, you want to sign off and follow your sign off with a comma, like we've done here. Okay, now let's read the entire thing together. Dear Sir, Madam, I am writing in regards to my library books, which are due in the near future. Unfortunately, I have a very urgent matter that I must attend to. You see, my cousin has fallen ill and is in the hospital. As you can understand, he is in need of support from my family. Regretfully, I will not be able to return my books to you as my plane departs today, and I will not have enough time to make a trip to you. I understand that this situation makes me eligible to receive a fine. However, I would greatly appreciate it if you would waive this fine on the grounds that my circumstances are very urgent. I trust that this will be possible, as I have consistently returned my books on time in the past. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Ryan. Now, one thing I'd just like to point out before we conclude is that there are some words in here that help the entire letter work together. Okay, and the words I'm talking about are basically separated by commas. So you see in here we have you see, as you can understand, regretfully, and then down here we use however, and I trust that this will be possible. Now these phrases, they help to link the sentences together. So a good example is down here where we say I trust that this will be possible. Now the word this, that helps us to link to the idea that came before it. Okay, and this when we use these words to link the sentences together, we call that cohesion, which I'll write down here. cohesion, which is basically the idea that we want our sentences to work as a team together to best get the idea across. Okay, so that is the conclusion of how to write a letter. Thank you for listening.